From bloodsport to big business, the wild rise of the UFC. On November 12, 1993, something incredible happened. Inside a small smoky arena in Denver, Colorado, a new era of combat sports was born. 8 men, each a master of their own fighting style, entered a caged ring. They called it the Ultimate Fighting Championship. It was unlike anything the world had ever seen. The rules were simple, almost anything goes. There were no weight classes, no time limits, and very few rules. It was a spectacle of raw, primal violence. The goal was to answer one question: which fighting style reigns supreme? The early UFC events were a spectacle. They were brutal, bloody, and unpredictable. One man dominated the competition: Royce Gracie. Royce, a small, unassuming Brazilian jiu-jitsu practitioner, shocked the world. He used his family's art, a grappling-based martial art, to defeat much larger opponents. Royce Gracie became the first UFC champion. He was an unlikely hero. He proved that size and strength weren't everything. Technique and strategy could prevail. The early UFC events were more than just fights. They were social experiments. They tested the limits of human endurance. They challenged preconceived notions about fighting. The world had never seen anything like it. The UFC tapped into a primal fascination with combat. It was raw, it was real, and it was captivating audiences worldwide. The UFC's popularity exploded. People were drawn to the raw excitement of the events. The sport quickly gained a reputation as a no-holds-barred spectacle. But this unrestrained violence also attracted criticism. Politicians and media outlets called it human cockfighting. They tried to shut it down. The UFC found itself in a battle for survival. It was a fight that would determine the future of the sport. Royce Gracie's victories were more than just wins. They were a paradigm shift in martial arts. Before the UFC, most martial arts were focused on striking. Boxing, karate, and taekwondo were the dominant styles. Gracie's dominance with Brazilian jiu-jitsu changed everything. Gracie showed the world the power of grappling. He proved that a smaller fighter could defeat a larger opponent by taking the fight to the ground. This revolutionized martial arts training. Dojos around the world began incorporating Brazilian jiu-jitsu into their curriculum. The UFC's early years were a melting pot of fighting styles. You had boxers, wrestlers, karate experts, and sumo wrestlers, all stepping into the octagon. It was a battle of styles. But as the sport evolved, a new breed of fighter emerged: the mixed martial artist. These fighters were well-rounded in all aspects of fighting. They trained in striking, grappling, and wrestling. They understood the importance of blending different styles. This evolution of fighting styles made the UFC even more exciting to watch. The fights became more technical, more strategic, and more unpredictable. The Gracie family's influence on the UFC is undeniable. They helped to create a new era of combat sports. They forced other martial arts to adapt and evolve. And they paved the way for the global phenomenon that the UFC is today. The UFC's early success was not without its challenges. The brutal nature of the events drew heavy criticism. Politicians like Senator John McCain called it human cockfighting. They rallied to ban the sport. The UFC was removed from pay-per-view providers. It struggled to find venues willing to host its events. The organization was on the verge of bankruptcy. Despite the controversy, the UFC had a loyal following. Fans were drawn to the raw intensity of the fights. They appreciated the skill and athleticism of the competitors. The UFC needed a way to reach these fans and to legitimize the sport. Enter CG Sports, a struggling TV production company. They saw the potential in the UFC. In 2001, SEG purchased the UFC for a mere $2 million. They brought in a new management team. This team included Dana White, a former boxing promoter who would become the face of the UFC. The new owners understood that for the UFC to survive, it needed to change. They implemented new rules. These rules were designed to improve fighter safety and to make the sport more palatable to a wider audience. Weight classes were introduced, rounds were timed, gloves became mandatory. These changes were controversial among some hardcore fans, but they were necessary for the UFC to grow. Section 4. The Zuffa Era. Enter Dana White and the rise of the Ultimate Fighter. So, the year 2001 marked a turning point for the UFC. Casino moguls Frank and Lorenzo Fertitta, along with Dana White, purchased the struggling organization. This marked the beginning of the Zuffa Era. Dana White, a former boxing promoter with a larger-than-life personality, took the helm as president. White immediately understood the potential of the UFC. He knew that to succeed, the UFC needed to shed its image as a brutal blood sport. He needed to transform it into a legitimate athletic competition. This meant implementing stricter rules, enhancing fighter safety, and securing mainstream media coverage. One of the most significant moves by the new ownership was the creation of the Ultimate Fighter reality show in 2005. This show aired on Spike TV, giving the UFC unprecedented exposure. The premise was simple: aspiring fighters living together, training together, and competing against each other for a six-figure UFC contract. The Ultimate Fighter was a massive success. It introduced the world to the personalities and backstories of these fighters. It showcased the dedication and discipline required to compete at the highest level of MMA. The show humanized the sport. It shattered the misconception of UFC fighters as nothing more than brutal brawlers. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the UFC's history, make sure to subscribe to our channel, like this video, and hit the notification bell for more exciting content. With Dana White at the helm, the UFC experienced a meteoric rise in popularity. The implementation of new rules, the success of The Ultimate Fighter, and a string of exciting fights captivated audiences worldwide. The UFC was no longer just an American phenomenon. It was a global sport, with fans from Brazil to Canada to the United Kingdom tuning in to watch these incredible athletes. The UFC began hosting events in arenas around the world, selling out stadiums from London to Melbourne. They established performance institutes in key locations like Las Vegas and Shanghai. These state-of-the-art facilities provided fighters with access to world-class training, nutrition, and recovery resources. As the sport grew, so did its stars. Fighters like Georges St-Pierre, a Canadian icon known for his well-rounded skills and sportsmanship, became global superstars. Anderson Silva, the enigmatic Brazilian with his matrix-like reflexes and devastating striking, captivated audiences with his dominance. Then came Brock Lesnar, a former WWE superstar who crossed over to the UFC and became a box office sensation. Lesnar's massive physique and raw power combined with his natural charisma drew legions of new fans to the sport. The UFC had truly arrived. It was no longer on the fringes of the sporting world, it was a mainstream phenomenon. As the UFC expanded its global footprint, the sport itself underwent significant changes. Rules and regulations played a crucial role in shaping the modern UFC we know today. In the early days, the UFC was often criticized for its perceived brutality and lack of rules. The original concept was no holds barred, with only a handful of restrictions. Eye gouging, biting, and groin strikes were among the few prohibited actions. This raw and unregulated environment, while thrilling, raised concerns among politicians and the public about the safety and legitimacy of the sport. To address these concerns and gain broader acceptance, the UFC began implementing stricter rules and regulations. The introduction of weight classes helped ensure fairer matchups and increased fighter safety. Rounds and time limits were established, adding structure to the bouts and reducing the risk of long-term injuries. One of the most significant changes was the adoption of the Unified Rules of Mixed Martial Arts in 2001. These comprehensive guidelines standardized the sport across different states and promotions. They included the use of gloves, the banning of certain dangerous techniques like headbutts and soccer kicks, and the introduction of a scoring system to determine winners in the absence of a knockout or submission. The UFC also placed a strong emphasis on fighter safety, implementing mandatory medical checks, drug testing, and concussion protocols. The establishment of the UFC Performance Institute further underscored their commitment to the well-being of their athletes, providing cutting-edge facilities and support. These evolving rules and regulations not only enhanced the safety and professionalism of the sport, but also helped it gain legitimacy in the eyes of fans, sponsors, and regulatory bodies. The UFC's journey from a controversial spectacle to a respected global sport is a testament to the importance of adaptation and innovation in the world of mixed martial arts. As the sport continues to grow and evolve, so too will its rules and regulations, ensuring that the UFC remains at the forefront of combat sports for years to come. As the UFC cemented its place as the premier platform for mixed martial arts, its influence began to ripple across the globe, transforming the world of martial arts in profound ways. The story of UFC's impact on global martial arts is one of inspiration, innovation, and the fusion of traditional and modern techniques. Before the UFC's meteoric rise, martial arts disciplines were often practiced in isolation, each with its own set of techniques, traditions, and philosophies. Karate, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, and wrestling were distinct entities, each with its own community and following. The UFC, however, brought these diverse disciplines under one roof, showcasing the effectiveness of cross-training and the need for versatility in combat. The success of UFC fighters who trained in multiple disciplines inspired a new generation of martial artists. Suddenly the idea of being a specialist in just one area seemed limiting. Aspiring fighters and enthusiasts recognized the value of being well-rounded, leading to the rise of MMA gyms around the world. These gyms offered training in various styles, providing a holistic approach to martial arts that was previously uncommon. The UFC's global reach also led to an exchange of techniques and knowledge. Fighters from different backgrounds learned from each other, blending traditional martial arts with modern combat strategies. This cross-pollination resulted in the evolution of new techniques and fighting styles, enriching the martial arts community as a whole. Moreover, The UFC's emphasis on fitness, nutrition, and scientific training methods trickled down to local gyms and training centers. The establishment of the UFC Performance Institute set new standards for athlete preparation, influencing gyms worldwide to adopt advanced training methodologies. This focus on holistic athlete development has benefited not only professional fighters but also recreational practitioners seeking to improve their fitness and skills. The UFC's influence extended beyond the gym, permeating popular culture and media. Martial arts movies, video games, and television shows began to reflect the dynamic and exciting nature of MMA, further popularizing the sport. This cultural shift made martial arts more accessible and appealing to a broader audience, encouraging people of all ages to take up training. In essence, the UFC has played a pivotal role in breaking down the barriers between different martial arts disciplines, fostering a spirit of unity and collaboration. Its impact on global martial arts is a testament to the power of innovation and the unifying force of sport. As the UFC continues to grow, its influence will undoubtedly inspire future generations to push the boundaries of what is possible in the world of martial arts. As the UFC continues to evolve, its future appears brighter and more dynamic than ever. The organization's relentless drive for innovation, coupled with its global reach, promises a new era of combat sports that will captivate audiences and inspire athletes worldwide. One of the most exciting aspects of the UFC's future is the emergence of new stars. As seasoned champions retire, a fresh wave of talent is poised to take their place. Fighters like Khamzat Chimaev, Sean O'Malley, and Amanda Ribas are already making waves, showcasing extraordinary skills and charisma that resonate with fans. These rising stars bring a new level of excitement and unpredictability to the Octagon, ensuring that the sport remains thrilling and competitive. In addition to new talent, the UFC is continually expanding its global footprint. Upcoming events in untapped markets like Africa, Southeast Asia, and the Middle East are set to introduce a diverse array of fighters and styles to the world stage. These regions are rich with martial arts traditions, and their inclusion in the UFC will not only diversify the roster, but also bring fresh perspectives and techniques to the sport. Technological advancements are also shaping the future of the UFC. Virtual reality, augmented reality, and advanced analytics are enhancing the viewer experience, making fights more immersive and interactive. Fans can expect to engage with the sport in unprecedented ways, whether through VR headsets that place them in the middle of the action, or through detailed analytics that offer deeper insights into fighter performance. Moreover, the UFC's commitment to athlete development is stronger than ever. The UFC Performance Institute continues to set the standard for training and rehabilitation, utilizing cutting-edge science to optimize athlete performance and longevity. This focus on holistic development ensures that fighters are not only at their physical peak, but also equipped with the mental and emotional tools needed to succeed. The future of UFC also lies in its ability to adapt and innovate. As the sport grows, so too will the rules and regulations that govern it. The UFC has already shown a willingness to evolve, and this flexibility will be crucial in addressing new challenges and opportunities that arise. In conclusion, the future of the UFC is filled with promise and potential. With new stars on the horizon, global expansion, technological advancements, and a commitment to athlete development, the UFC is well positioned to remain at the forefront of combat sports. As fans, we can look forward to a future where the thrills, drama, and spectacle of the UFC continue to captivate and inspire. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and check out more of our content for the latest updates and stories from the world of UFC.